He spoke at industry events all over the US. Please welcome, without further ado, Bill Petrie.
Thanks, Scott. Well, good morning. Whoa. It's a little loud. Good morning. Thank you, Scott, for that introduction. I am absolutely thrilled to be here in Toronto. This is my first time in Canada, so happy to be here. And since it's my first time in Canada, I hadn't traveled internationally in quite a long time, and I had let my passport expire. I'd traveled to Europe and Mexico and things like that. And so about 3 months ago, I went to a government office, as one would do, to get their passport photo taken, and I smiled because I'm a happy guy and I like to smile. And he said, "Sir, you can't smile. The exact words were, you can show no human emotion." So that's my passport picture. I was dumb or smart enough to post it on Facebook, and then someone put that on there. So despite that, I'm actually very, very happy to be here. Like Scott had said, I've been in the promotional products industry for 15 years. I've worked primarily on the distributor side of the business in executive leadership positions at some large distributors. And then 2 years ago, I decided to start my own business services company called Brandivate, where I focus my efforts working with small and medium-sized distributors and suppliers, helping them grow their sales. As he also mentioned, I am part of Promo Kitchen. How many of you are familiar with Promo Kitchen? Oh, good, a good number of you. So then you know that our two pillars are focused on mentorship. I think in 2015 we had, 60 mentors, 60 people being mentored in the industry, and that's something we're very proud of. And then we also focus on education, so that's our second pillar, and obviously that's one of the reasons I'm here today. So I want this to be interactive. I don't want this to be boring, so feel free to raise your hand, call me names, except for John Norris, and let me know, how we're doing. So what do you guys think the biggest challenge is facing our industry today? Both suppliers and distributors, because we're both facing a lot of the same challenges. Throw some out there.
Margin pressure.
Margin pressure, yes. What else? So suppliers going direct or direct importing? I didn't hear them. Customers going direct and direct importing, good. What else? Well, one I usually hear a lot is pricing, especially on the distributor side. They get a lot of pricing pressure from the competition. The distributors in the room, does that sound about right? Feel a little pricing pressure sometimes? Industry consolidation is one I hear a lot. Halo last year acquired Newton Manufacturing. You had Prime acquire Jetline, and I think that is only going to accelerate over the next 12 to 18 months. The breakdown in the supply chain, and that's kind of what you had mentioned, suppliers going direct. There's always a concern, maybe it's not if a large supplier goes direct. We all know about Bell Promo, but it's not if a supplier is going to go direct, it's when are they going direct. Customer loyalty. How many feel like your customers are as loyal as they were 10 or 15 years ago? Are you guys awake? Okay, good. Some people feel that their clients aren't as loyal any longer. Internet. A lot of people are very concerned about how the internet and the way people are purchasing is impacting the way they've done business, the way they've always done it. And the last one I throw up there is millennials. A lot of people are very concerned about millennials, and I'll tell you a little later why you shouldn't be. But those are the challenges I hear a lot of people talk about when they think about what are the challenges I face either as a distributor or as a supplier. Here's the way I view it. Here's how clients see you. Whether you're a distributor or a supplier, they see you as one of many. If you're on the distributor side, obviously there's a whole bunch of competition out there. If you're on the supplier side, you may have 3 or 4 competitors that sell exactly the same thing you do. What we want is our clients to see us like that, right? We're individuals. We have something unique to offer. That's how we want our clients to see us. So from my perspective, the biggest challenge I jumped ahead, I'm sorry. So who knows who that is? That's Jack Welch, and he was CEO of General Electric from 1981 to 2001. And he pioneered a policy of informality that really allowed a large organization like General Electric, the employees in General Electric, to experience a very entrepreneurial environment. And he grew the market value from 12 billion when he took over to 280 billion when he left. And he's a great guy for quotes. And one of my favorite quotes from Jack Welch: if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. There's no reason to. Now, his philosophy was, if one of General Electric's business units wasn't either 1 or 2 in their chosen market, get out. I wouldn't advocate that in our industry, but it's certainly something to think about. So I see the biggest challenge facing our industry is that of differentiation. On the distributor side, and in the United States, and I don't know what the statistics are in Canada in terms of how many distributors, but in the United States, there's about 24,000 people selling the exact same thing to the exact same clients, using the exact same products at around the same price. So why the hell would anyone want to buy from one specific distributor or another? And we're going to talk about that today. On the supplier side, it's the same thing. If you have, a lot of times it'll come down to price. They'll shop you, distributors will shop you around as well. So how can we be different? And one of the ways people tend to say, well, I know how I'm different. I'm creative, right? You guys tell your clients you're creative, and we tell our prospects we're creative. I'm telling you, that's one of the worst things you can do right now. Telling a prospect that you haven't worked with that you're creative, telling a client you're trying to develop that you're creative without proving that is like walking up to a prospect and saying, hey, I'm awesome. Because without any context, being creative means nothing. Think about it from a distributor perspective. You may tell a prospect you're wildly creative, and you bring in several products to show them how creative you are, but what you don't realize is your competitor showed that 2 weeks ago. And the client actually bought it 3 months ago, and it didn't actually work as well as they had hoped. So I would suggest don't hold on to this value of creativity that is going to suddenly make you different than everybody else in the marketplace. Because I've asked this question in rooms when it's been mostly distributors, and I'll ask them to raise their hand, and usually about 85% of people raise their hand when I ask the question, how many of you tell or use creativity as part of your value proposition when you're trying to get new clients? So if 85% of your competitors are doing it, not really different, is it? It's not really different. So we're going to talk about what I call finding your voice and finding that differentiation that we all have. We all own that. And we're going to start with the brand message, because whether you work for a large company, you work for a medium-sized company, or you work for yourself, every one of us is a brand. That's not exactly a new concept. But when we're talking about brand messaging, we're really talking about 3 key questions. Number 1, how does your brand fit into the marketplace? Now, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm very fortunate to live in Nashville, Tennessee. I was talking to someone earlier, I think it was Lynn, who's saying that that's on her bucket list of American cities to visit. And it's truly fabulous. I got to tell you, it's fantastic. But how I would go to market selling promotional products in Nashville, Tennessee, which is a smaller cosmopolitan city, and it gets very rural very quickly, is very different than how I would go to market in a large metropolitan area like New York City or Toronto. So are the people you're working with, are they in an urban or rural area? And what types of clients are they servicing? So that's the first question. The second one is, what does your target audience want from your brand? What do they want from you? Right, that's a key question. And if you don't know what your clients want from you, how are you going to give it to them? Because some clients are going to want pragmatic promotions, the same consistency over time, and there's going to be other clients who want wild, unabashed creativity. And if we don't know that, we're not going to be able to deliver that. And then what emotion does your brand elicit in the audience? I'm a big believer that brands elicit emotions, and let's go through an exercise. So when you see that brand, what does that make you feel? Throw it out there. What does it make you think? I'm sorry? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. Reliable, okay. What else? Information, great one. What else? Trustworthy, great. So Google has fundamentally changed the way we get information, right? I trust it. It's become a verb now. I Googled it. I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago. I have 13-year-old twin boys, and they wouldn't know how to look up information in a 4-foot row of Encyclopedia Britannicas to save their life. So that brand, the brand of Google elicits, I can get information quickly, I know it's going to be reliable, and I know I'm going to get it fast. Those are emotions, right? But it's, like I said, it's fundamentally changed the way we get information. Back when I was a kid, I was bored, I'd grab an Encyclopedia Britannica, and I'd pick out S, and I'd start looking, and I'd learn things. Now we have to know what to ask. What is that brand? What emotions does that brand elicit for you guys? What? Weight gain. That's fair. Anybody else? Fast food? Yes, sir. Deep fried. Nothing bad's deep fried. I'm from the South. I'm from the United States. Nothing bad comes out of deep fried. When I think of McDonald's, the two emotions that immediately stir within inside me are efficiency. I know I'm going to get it quickly, and consistency. I expect a Big Mac to taste the same in San Francisco, California as I would in Nashville, Tennessee, as I would in Toronto, Canada. Like I said, I expect efficiency. I don't know how long too long is. I don't have an actual time limit, but I know when it's been too long, right? We know that. Now, this wouldn't be interesting. What about that? Now, you guys may not know who Comcast is in Canada, but in the United States, they're known for horrible customer service. And usually when I show this logo, it's a big groan. I asked Mark Graham, and I said, can you give me a Canadian equivalent? And he gave me Rogers. So I assume, and to the research, they're known for horrible customer service. Now, in the United States, Comcast is changing their name to something called Xfinity with an X. Now, they can do that all they want, but still that emotion of having that negative experience. I'm a Comcast customer, unfortunately, for my internet and in my office, and every time I call them, I brace for impact because I know it's going to be a negative experience. So every brand, whether it's these brands, whether it's the brands of your individual company, or it's your own personal brand, elicits emotions in who you're talking to. And we need to realize that. We want to make sure we're steering the emotions to where we want them to be. So how do we build that message? Oops. So powerful brands are going to develop based on what you will deliver. So if each experience you have with a brand turns into a perception, and then that perception turns into an expectation, right? Talking about my experience with Comcast, I've had so many negative experiences with them, I immediately am ready for that. I travel a lot, which means I'm very loyal to an airline, a car rental company, and a hotel chain. So I'm an American Airlines guy, I'm a Hilton guy, and I'm a National Rent-A-Car guy. I have walked into enough, I generally stay like a Hampton Inn, which is the mid-scale Hilton hotel. And I'm absolutely convinced that the Marriott version of that, the Courtyard, is actually a superior product. But I can't move my points. I can't bring myself to do it. But I've had enough experiences in a Hampton Inn where I walk in the door, what's that smell? What's that stain? That hasn't been repaired in a long time. I've had enough negative experiences that at some point, I don't care about the points anymore. I'm going to find someone who gives me the experience I want. Because our clients, our customers want an experience. And if you're not giving them the experience that they want, if you're not providing them the value that they want, they're going to find someone who will. Because in our marketplace, it's very easy to do so. If you have a client who decides to stop buying from you, aren't there other places they can get what you're selling them? So it's important for us to make sure we're consistent with both our experience and our perceptions so that every client experience underscores the value of our own brand. It takes persistence and patience. These things aren't built overnight. You have to do it over and over and over again. I always use sometimes people will say, we're very responsive, right? It's a word, it's a great word, but unless you put a value to it, it really is meaningless, right? So we're going to be responsive to emails within 3 hours, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But you have to practice that over time so people have those experiences over time. It takes time to build that. Does anybody remember this car? Talk about restraint. Does anybody remember this car? Yeah, it is a Mercedes. I have to actually look because I don't remember. It's a Mercedes CDI Sports Coupe, and it was developed in about 2006. And just like anybody else, Mercedes wanted to increase their market share. And they knew they had an appeal to luxury car buyers. They wanted to appeal to the entry-level buyers. So that's an entry-level Mercedes. It's a hatchback, a Mercedes hatchback. To me, that's like a German Pacer, if anybody remembers the Pacer, or a Gremlin. It completely eroded their brand, and they discontinued it later. Because if I'm buying a Mercedes, yes, I want a quality car, but part of me is buying that status, right? It's a luxury item. I want the status that goes along with it. And now that you're selling it to someone who's maybe a year out of university, well, I don't feel like I have that status any longer. And we have to do the same thing. So when we're building our brand and building who we're going to talk to in terms of promotional products clients, we have to show some restraint. Just because you have success selling in healthcare, I'm sure many of you have healthcare clients, doesn't necessarily mean you can translate that same exact success into the gaming industry, into casinos. It's a different buy, it's a different sell, there's different expectations. So you can grow vertically as opposed to horizontally. So for example, if you're working in the healthcare industry, who's supplying the scrubs? Who are they partnered with, especially in the United States? Who are they partnered with on the insurance side? Who's supplying their medical instruments? There's places within that sphere where you have subject matter expertise where you can grow your business rather than saying, okay, here's a big area and I'm going to sell to everybody. And we're going to talk about that on the next slide. So you have to stay in your lane a little bit and maintain the focus because it's very easy to lose focus in terms of who we're selling to. The second thing we're going to talk about is our target audience and building a client profile. You know, one of the main reasons most of us got in this industry, especially on the distributor side to begin with, is because everybody buys what we sell, right? There's not one business segment that doesn't buy promotional products. But just because we can sell to everybody doesn't mean we should sell to everybody. We need to be very specific in terms of building a client profile so that we know who we're selling to. You know, most view a client profile as kind of a list of, okay, this is a area I work in, this is the town I live in, that's my client profile. It's really a lot deeper than that. It's finding the right target for each of you. It's finding the right connection to make. And the first thing we need to do is look at the primary attributes. How big is the company you want to work with? Some people are very comfortable working in large corporate organizations. Some people aren't. So if you're not comfortable selling in a corporate environment, don't. There's plenty of other people who will buy from you in a place where you can really make hay. How many employees do they have? What type of organization is it? Is it a franchise or is it a not-for-profit? Some people are more comfortable and have more success focusing on a specific business segment. And then how do they go to market? I'm a big believer in culture, and that culture trumps just about everything. So of the distributors in the room, how many of you have had a client relationship for more than 5 years? How about more than 10? 15? 20? That's fantastic. So there's a couple people who've had client relationships for more than 20 years. And back there, gentlemen, right, yes, you, sir, yes. How many buyers, just roughly, over the course of that 20 years in the organization have you worked with? Just take a guess. I'm not going to check, I promise. 30 or 40. So that's a lot of different buyers. I would believe, and not knowing the organization, but I believe your values and your culture meshes very well with their culture. And because of that, you're able to kind of ride the changes, how they go to market and so on and so forth. It's important to align yourself with people you want to work with and you like working with. It's not about just getting the dollar. It's about making those connections on an alignment perspective. So after primary attributes, our secondary attributes. And that's the culture I just talked about. It's maybe they have some diversity initiatives. Some of you may be women-owned. Some of you may be minority-owned, and that may help you get in the door. Maybe they have some specialty markets. But then you want to go deeper. What industries do you want to work in? This is where your organization can add the most value. If you have specific subject matter expertise, let's say in hospitality, you can exploit that, and you can really dig deep. So it's not just saying, I want to work in the hospitality industry, because that's really the beginning. So now you want to look at, okay, in the area where I can get to, or I feel like I have some influence, what are the resorts in the area? What types of clients do they cater to? Is it young adults? Is it unmarried young adults? Is it small families? Is it diverse lifestyles? What kind of amenities do the people who go to that resort expect? I've been to resorts, I'm sure you guys have too, and sometimes there's a nice pair of slippers in the closet, and it has a little logo on it, and it says, there's a little card that says, I hope you enjoy the slipper, or we hope you enjoy the slippers. If you'd like to take them, it'll cost you $30. And sometimes there's no little card, because they want you to take them. I always tell a story. I grew up in Texas, and on a car trip, my parents, we would stay at Holiday Inns as we would make our way wherever we were going. And my parents would always leave room in the suitcase to take towels. So the bath mat, bath mat, you get out of the shower and you stand there, you dry off, and you got to drip on something. The bath mat I grew up with said Holiday Inn for 10 years. And I'm sure the people at Holiday Inn really don't care that that towel, whatever it cost them in 19, whatever it was stolen from their hotel. They had that in their budget. So what tolerance do the hospitality companies you might be working with have for shrinkage as a marketing vehicle, right? So you really want to start digging deeper, and you can do that with any industry you might be working in, whether it's insurance, healthcare, whatever it may be. And then last is contacts, and this is my favorite one. How many of you, let's do it this way. What department in any organization distributors, do you tend to like to work through? Let's throw it out there. Marketing. If I was Richard Dawson and this were Family Feud, that'd be the #1 answer on the board. Everybody goes to marketing, right? Because that's where we feel, that's where we've been trained to go. That's who's got the most budget. That's where we feel like we speak the same language, right? How many of you guys go to the grocery store? Just, right, we go to the grocery store. Everybody goes, dumb question. Of course everybody goes to the grocery store. When you get the products you're getting at the grocery store, which line do you pick? The shortest or the longest? Shortest, right? You want to get out of the grocery store. By continually picking marketing when you're prospecting as the department you focus on, you're getting in the longest line. I had the privilege of working with UPS about 4 years ago, presenting to their marketing group. I had gotten an appointment, and I love when I'm in a big presentation like that. It's one of those, man, I couldn't sleep the night before, very excited, and we've all been part of presentations like that. And I like to ask questions like an attorney would. I like to ask questions I kind of know the answer to, so I can leads to my next question. And as we were starting to talk, I said, just out of curiosity, about how many people a week from my industry call to try to get an appointment at UPS? Anyone want to take a guess what that was? I thought I knew what it was. Anyone want to take a guess what that is? 50, 100. It was 50. 50 a week. 50 a week. So when we're looking at the contacts in terms of building a client profile, there are other departments that spend a ton of money on promotional products. Human resources, although that's becoming almost like marketing part B because everybody goes there. My favorite, and the way I approach it, is very simple. If any of you have worked for a corporation where you've been, there's one day a year where the employee's worst day intersects with the employer's worst day, and that's the annual review. Does anybody like getting an annual review? I know I don't, because now I'm sitting across from somebody and I'm going to be judged on a sheet of paper, and I'll get 4s and 5s, and you'll hear weird things like, you're a great employee, but I can't give you all 5s. Why not? Well, we just don't do that. And it's hard for an employer to give a review because it's painful to really critique someone. So whatever department I am working with, whatever it may be, whether it's sales, human resources, marketing, whatever, my goal is to have that person on the other side of the table have a better annual review. And so when I think of it that way, I think of what motivates them internally to buy. So if I'm working with marketing, they're going to want to, do what marketing is. They're going to want to increase market share, things like that. If I'm working with the sales group, they're going to want to have top line revenue and bottom line profitability. If I'm working with human resources, it might be retention of talent, or it might be acquiring talent. But my favorite one to go to is usually everybody's least favorite one to go to: procurement. I love procurement. I absolutely love procurement because I know exactly what those weasels want. And I can give it to them. And I can use them as a back door to get into any department in any company I want. And that's how I got into UPS. By going to the procurement officer and knowing what procurement wants, what they're measured year over year on annual savings in their product category. That's it. That's what they're measured on, and then there's the subsection of that where they like control. I've never met a procurement professional that doesn't want to control absolutely their product category. So by having a conversation with them, showing that we can aggregate the spend, I can save money, now I need you to get me into other departments. And I'm going to have a different conversation with them. Still going to provide you the same dollar value that we talked about, but I am going to provide a different value to a different audience. I have had more success with that than anything else when it came to building a business in this industry. So don't be afraid of procurement. Embrace them. They need love too. They do. And you can give it to them. So the second step in the target audience, we have to monitor and evolve. I do have to look at my notes on this one. So you've identified a target audience. You have an ideal client. And you might even be working with them. And gentleman back there has had a 20-year relationship with somebody, and some of you have had 5, 10, 15 years. The way people go to business, to go to market, the way your clients go to market is evolving rapidly, rapidly. I was thinking about this, and so I was thinking about McDonald's taglines because it's something everybody's familiar with. And I was thinking of the taglines they've had since I was a kid, and I wrote down, "You deserve a break today." Remember that? And that's kind of an entitlement thing. I remember what you want is what you get. There's a choice message there, and that's when they were competing directly with Burger King, because Burger King was you can have it your way. Have you had your break today? Now we're back to entitlement. Did somebody say McDonald's? Kind of a weird brand awareness message. I think everybody's aware of McDonald's. We love to see you smile, which is a satisfaction message, and I'm loving it, another satisfaction message. So what McDonald's has done is they've realized that their audience has evolved and changed. Their wants and needs have changed. So McDonald's now realizes their competition isn't Burger King. It's not Wendy's. Their competition is Chipotle, is Five Guys. Do you guys have Five Guys up here? Okay. So it's more, because they know their audience is looking for what they perceive as fresher food, higher quality food, and McDonald's needs to do that. And so what did they do last year? Now we have breakfast every day because everybody recognized that was the highest quality food McDonald's offered was their breakfast offerings. And they saw sales increase system-wide, at least in the United States, by 15%, which was a huge deal. I mean, McDonald's was in trouble. I was telling my bride about a year or two ago, it wouldn't surprise me to see McDonald's go away. So we have to monitor, we have to evolve with our clients as well. In the United States, healthcare has changed dramatically over the last few years. Absolutely dramatically, and I'm sure you guys know, what I'm talking about. And so the way insurance companies go to market has changed too. And when our clients change, we have to change the way we sell them. I am sure you sell your clients a very different way than you did 20 years ago, the one you have a relationship with. You have to roll on that roller coaster with them. So we have to, we know it's continually changing. We have to do some client tracking. And what I mean by that is every touch point you have, make sure you understand how their world is changing. You have to understand how their world is changing so you know how to adapt to it and think differently. Because if you don't, I guarantee you there's someone else, maybe even in this room, who has no problem saying they're going to market differently and I'm going to sell to them differently. I'm going to provide them different services. And you have to make sure your messaging is in alignment with what your clients want. So that will help you find the right audience to sell to. Internal disruption is the next one. I'm really tired of the word disruption. I feel like it's overused, but I can't think of another word because I went to Texas A&M University, and that's as smart as it gets for me. So I'm not talking about disrupting an industry. I'm talking about internal disruption, and I'm sure most of you know the Kodak story. In the late 1800s, they developed the first camera that people could afford and understand how to use, and then over the next 100 years, they completely dominated that industry. Completely dominated, right? But then when digital photography came along, they were extraordinarily slow to adapt, and they went out of business and killed an entire region for decades. I mean, I think, John, you live in that area, still feeling the effects of that. Yeah. I know, I'm going to get to that, but yes, they did. So they didn't disrupt. They got fat, happy. They had 90% of the market share in 1975. 90% of the film market share in North America. My favorite example is, again, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and Blockbuster Video. Does everybody remember when Blockbuster Videos freely roamed the earth? Wasn't that long ago. They started in 1984 or 1982. I'm sorry, 1985 in Dallas. And then by 1992, they had 2,900 stores worldwide. And then in 1994, they were sold for $8.4 billion to Viacom. Really quick track. The gentleman who founded Netflix was a Blockbuster customer, and he got charged $40 because he didn't return Apollo 13 on time. And he thought there's got to be a better way to do this, and so he invented Netflix. And at the time, if anybody was a Netflix customer way back then, you'd have a non-digital queue. You'd get a movie, you'd watch it, you'd send it back in an envelope, and they'd send you the next one in your queue, and that's how it worked. And then when technology caught up to the idea, obviously Netflix took Blockbuster out of business, even though Blockbuster said, no, people still want that experience of coming into a physical storefront, touching a movie, getting a box of Junior Mints or whatever it may be. Obviously they were wrong. And by 2013, they were completely out of business. What a meteoric rise and a meteoric fall. In 1955, do you guys know what the average length of tenure for a company was in the Fortune 500? Anyone want to take a guess? So the time someone would appear on that list and then move off that list? 33 years. You know what it is now? 3.5. 3.5. So that's why, I might say something like, it wouldn't surprise me to see McDonald's go out of business. It really wouldn't surprise me. The way things are changing so quickly, we have to disrupt the way we do things as well. So how do we do that? We have to honor the past, but we have to look to the future. The past is a great teacher, horrible predictor of future success. Absolutely horrible predictor of future success. I like to read a lot, and I like to read business books, and obviously some ones from outside the industry come to mind. Amazon, Zappos, Apple's a great example. Amazon's probably my favorite example. I mean, they started off as an online bookseller trying to compete with Barnes & Noble. Now you can get anything through Amazon, right? I mean, there's not one thing you can't get through Amazon. They completely disrupted internally how they went to market. And we need to look at doing the same thing. Because I'll tell you that each one of you has achieved a level of success. Whether you're a supplier or a distributor, you've achieved this level of success today. And my guess is you want to get here or wherever it may be. And the activities you took to get here today are probably not the same activities it's going to take you to get to the next level. It's not about just doing more or working harder. It's doing things differently and adapting to what your audience wants. Being courageous. You have to allow yourself and your team to be courageous and take chances. Am I hitting this thing? Is that me? If you have a group that won't embrace that spirit of disruption, and if you're working on your own, if you don't have an accountability partner to kind of question the things you're doing, because it takes courage to do something different, right? It would have taken Kodak courage to adapt. It would have taken Blockbuster courage to completely shift their business model. They didn't want to do it. How many of us are doing the same things we've always done and expecting different results? Isn't that the old definition of insanity, right? Doing the same things you've always done and expecting different results. So be courageous to try something new. Embrace failure. Failure is a good thing. It is not a bad word. I have 13-year-old twin boys. They're redheads. I didn't mention that, but I do have 13-year-old twin boys. And when they come home from school, I used to ask them, hey, how was school today? You know what they tell me? Fine. All right. Fine, Dad. Don't engage me anymore. Now I ask them, what did I do every day? What did you do today that you failed at? Because I want them to really understand that failure is absolutely not just okay, but it's critical to their own development. And it's critical to your development and your business development too, to do new things and try and fail. The example I can come up from outside our industry is the Apple. Do you remember personal data assistants, Palm Pilots? Do you guys remember those things? Apple had one called the Newton. It sucked. It was bad product. Had great ideas in it, but as a product, it absolutely failed. And it almost bankrupted the company. I mean, it was a big launch and an enormous failure. But the same features that are in that Apple Newton are now on your iPhone if you have an iPhone. And it's been adapted by other, Samsung and other smartphone. So Apple's biggest failure became the fuel for their biggest success. And that's an important thing to realize. I'm sure each one of us can look back on, whether we're in sales or operations or marketing or wherever position we're in, of things we've done where we failed at. And it hurt at the time and it was terrible at the time, but I wouldn't change that experience for anything because it helped me get to where I am today. And it's easy as we become successful, as we get complacent, to start, I don't want to try things that are new. I'm too old to do that. I'm uncomfortable doing something new. You have to embrace that failure and remember that failure is absolutely 100% not just okay, but it's critical. And then do the opposite. Like I said, I love reading and I love biographies, and some of my favorite biographies are of like Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines or Herb Kelleher from Southwest or Steve Jobs. And those leaders had a distinct propensity to zig while everybody else was zagging, right? They had a foresight to do something that anybody else wasn't doing. So if you are going to market and trying to get new clients, how many of you use email as your primary way to get new clients? Okay, only a couple, good. Because usually it's a lot of people. If everybody's doing one thing, do something else. I'm a big believer in direct mail, but the second everybody else starts doing direct mail, I'd stop doing it. because that alone helps you stand out and be different because you're not doing what everything does. Usually when I ask that question, about 40 people raise their hand and say, yeah, we do email marketing. And I've been part of those type of campaigns, and you pour over every word, making sure it's perfect, and it sounds right, and it reads exactly right, and does the comma need to be there? Is that more of a semicolon situation or whatever it is? And you know what? It still takes me just a second to delete that thing. I don't care how long it's taken you to write it. Because I get 100 and whatever emails a day. I'm sure you guys are no different. So you got to do things that are different to stand out. My favorite part of the Kodak story, and I mentioned it here, did you know they developed the first digital camera internally in 1975? It was brought to the executive team, and they said, we do not want to threaten our business. They had the golden goose right there. They had it right here. They put it on a shelf. The ideas you have that may seem outlandish, the ways you want to go to market that you've never tried before, try them. Try them. Because I will tell you that 95% of your competition either will not burn the calories to do it or they don't have the stomach to do it. Disrupt yourself internally. If you've been doing things the same way for a few years, look at it very hard. How has the market changed? How have my clients changed? Disrupt yourself internally. The client experience. Love this one. This is probably my favorite section of the whole thing. So we here in the United States, Comcast will tell me on their website that they have 24/7 customer service, even though I know it's horrible. I don't know if Rogers has the same claim. And many of us will say, we are absolutely focused on customer service. We're 100% focused on the customer, but I'm not sure we really are. I'm not sure we really are. So how do we keep our minds razor sharp to make sure that the customer really is our main focus? And it's what I call a client experience contract. And the first thing is we have to embrace curiosity as a mindset. Unfortunately, as we grow older, kids ask all sorts of questions. Why is the sky blue? Why is the water wet? We lose that innate curiosity. Sometimes we're scared of the answers. Sometimes we just don't even know what to ask. But the brands that really deepen their relationships with their clients absolutely embrace curiosity. They ask, why are you doing this, Mr. Client? Tell me how your target audience has changed. Tell me, we've gone to this trade show for 3 years. How have the people attending the trade show, how have their expectations changed? What are some of your competitors doing that make you wildly jealous? Asking just question after question, especially as you start developing a rapport with somebody. Of course, at first, it's not easy to ask those questions, and a lot of times we don't have the opportunity to ask those questions. But as you develop a relationship with somebody, asking those questions and embracing curiosity as a mindset is absolutely critical. Because A, it shows you care. Yes, sir?
I find sometimes when you get in that mode of asking these, I would call them deep questions, trying to gather information, sometimes there is that stare that is almost like you're wasting my time.
The question was, when you're asking those questions, do you get the glaze-eyed look from the person you're talking to, or you can just read the body language that, are you wasting my time? Why are you wasting my time? Is that? Of course. Sure. Some people aren't going to want to do that. I would like to take my kids out to sushi. They're not ready for that. I've begged, I've pleaded, they just won't do it. I mean, you're going to have clients that just don't want to have that deep of a conversation with you. And maybe they just don't want it, number one, but maybe you haven't had an opportunity to really develop that type of rapport where you can get them maybe away from the office or look, I want to just have a conversation. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to have a conversation about what we can do better, how we can maximize your budget. Some people aren't just going to want to have that conversation. And you can't, it'd be nice if you could force them, but you can't.
Would you recommend a certain format, like an online survey?
I think that would depend. I am a big fan the question was, would you recommend an online survey where people could bang it out very quickly? I think that could work in certain situations. I'm a fan of when I meet a new client, especially with the way technology is, I ask them, how would you prefer me to communicate with you? Because there are some people who want email, there's some people who want phone calls, there's some people who want text, and there's some people who are all over the map, and you just never know. I think for some people that would work, but I think it's dangerous to say a blanket statement, absolutely come up with an online form, because many of the questions you would be asking and that I'm talking about and having that curiosity beget other questions. And that online form kind of prevents you, just by its simple, the way it's structured, prevents you from following up. But when you can, embrace curiosity as a mindset. The culture of the client. Every single touch point you have needs to reinforce your brand message. So we talked about brand message earlier. So every single touch point, from sales to marketing to customer service to accounting, needs to reinforce your brand message. If you are responsive and you've sold that you're responsive, every person in your organization needs to be responsive. Because every touch point is an opportunity to reinforce that. And I'm a big believer that bullet points, and I'm going to provide this to Scott and group and this PowerPoint so you guys can have it, but I'm a big believer that you'll walk away remembering stories and a couple things. So I do want to take this opportunity to tell a story about the culture of a client. Everybody's familiar with Amazon, yes? No, is anybody not familiar with Amazon? Good. So I'm an Amazon Prime member, so I pay $99 a year. I get my 2-day free shipping and all the benefits that go with that. As Scott mentioned when he introduced me, I started Brandivate in the fall of 2014. And so at the PPAI show in 2015, it was kind of my coming out party. Very excited. And so I had worked very hard and set appointments. And it was the first time I was going to a big industry show like that on my own dime, right? So it was very, exciting but nerve-wracking all in the same moment. And I got there on Sunday, and I had 7 appointments on Tuesday, and I had 7 appointments on Wednesday. I mean, I was stacked, and I was very excited about that. So I get to Las Vegas. I have dinner Sunday night. I may have had a couple of cocktails. I may not have. Nobody was there, and you can't tell me. No, I had a late night, just seeing friends I hadn't seen in a while. And so Monday came. I had 2 appointments, and I knew Monday was my early night. At the time, I'm 45 years old. I know I can't do back-to-back-to-back late nights in Vegas. I have my human limits, and I decided it's my early night. I'm not going to go out. And a supplier friend of mine, many of you may know him, Dana Zezzo, invited me out, said, Bill, why don't you come to dinner with us? Well, since I'm out there on my own, I'm not going to turn down a free dinner, so absolutely. So we're going to go off campus to Caesar's Palace, and we go through the dinner. I had 1 beer. And it was a 2-hour dinner, and it was getting to be about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I just wanted to go back and go to sleep. I knew I wouldn't sleep, but I just wanted to kind of get back and kind of huddle up. I was the only one that had 1 beer that night, and one of the people with us, there were 13 of us, is this young kid. He's maybe 29 or 30, and he's dressed to the nines, 3-piece suit, totally fit, and he is slobbering drunk. And he wants to get a 13-person limo from Caesar's Palace back to Mandalay Bay. I know what my personality can bring to a situation when I'm not pleased, so I just politely walked across the circular driveway and sat on a stone bench while he figured out whatever transportation issues he was going to figure out. They figured it out, and he sees me from across the driveway and screams, Bill! I pulled my head up, and this kid in this 3-piece suit to the nine starts skipping over to me. I think that's funny. So he comes up to me, and I grab his arm like we're in some sort of square dance, and we start skipping back. And about 3/4 the way there, I heard this pop. I felt a pop, and I went down. And I look up, and I said, did you just kick me? Because that's what it felt like. And he said, no. And I stood up, and my left foot was just dangling there. I had fully ruptured my Achilles tendon. As a 45-year-old man, stone cold sober, skipping in Las Vegas. So I had to rent a scooter. There's me in Las Vegas that year on my little scooter. Those things are awesome, by the way. They go much faster than you realize. They are quite the terror. So I go to the hospital. They diagnose, and I'd never had any major injury, but I knew what it was. And if you like people watching, I highly recommend going to a Las Vegas trauma hospital after about 11 o'clock at night, sober. There's some pretty interesting stuff going on. It might scar you a little too, but pretty interesting. So I rode my scooter for the next couple of days, went back home to Nashville, went to an orthopedist, said, absolutely, we're going to have to perform surgery. I've never broken a bone. I've never had surgery or anything like that. So I have the scar to prove it. Scott saw it yesterday when he picked me up because I was wearing shorts. I've got about that long of a scar. One of the things, part of that was I had to stay off my foot for 6 weeks, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do if you've never had to do it. I thought it was an incredibly difficult thing to do. We live in a 2-story house, and I had to figure out ways to get upstairs. It was horrible. So I decided I want to get a knee scooter. You guys know what a knee scooter is? That's a knee scooter. And I decided I'm going to have a knee scooter because I would, I was on crutches, and I'd go in the kitchen. I couldn't bring water to the office. It was so limiting. I wanted that. Now, the one I had was awesome. And I got flame decals to go on the side of it because my kids and I were going to decorate. It was going to be the most badass knee scooter in Nashville. And it had a little basket there, and I even got a bell just to annoy my bride. So I could say, I need something, hit the bell. So I ordered it on a Friday, and so I'm an Amazon Prime member, supposed to come Monday. They weren't shipping on Sundays quite yet, at least this product. Well, as it turned out, on Sunday night, a massive, massive snowstorm hit Nashville and dumped a 1/4 inch of snow on the ground and paralyzed the city. Shut us down. We're not going anywhere. And I got a notification that UPS, unfortunately, was not going to make me happy on Monday and deliver my scooter. The next day, as it turned out, I had a doctor's appointment. Go to the doctor, my bride takes me there, and I go to the doctor. He says, Bill, you're doing fantastic. In fact, you're doing so well, it's time for you to start putting partial weight on your foot, which generally would have been good news, but all I could think about is, I got this big knee scooter coming now that I don't need. That's all I thought about. So we race back home, and I get online, because you don't call anybody from Amazon, you get online with somebody from Amazon, and a little chat sessions open up, and his name was Chad. And I said, Chad, I have a knee scooter out for delivery. I can still see, the UPS tracking out for delivery. I have a knee scooter coming. I don't need the knee scooter. And I see the little typing thing. He's typing. He says, hold on, let me see what I can do. Comes back a minute or two later. It says, I've been able to contact UPS. They're not going to deliver it. Fantastic, because that's really all I wanted. I just didn't want to deal with a big giant box and having to return it. And then I see his little typing. He's typing again. Da-da-da-da-da. He says, and because it never left our possession, I'm going to go ahead and credit your credit card back immediately. We don't have to wait till it comes back to the warehouse. That's not bad. See him typing again. And for your trouble, I'm going to give you a $10 Amazon gift card in your account. My trouble? I'm the one causing the problems here. I've told that story more times and gotten more mileage out of it, certainly personally, but how many times has Amazon benefited from that story? I'm never not going to be an Amazon Prime client. I'm happy to pay my $99 a year because they, even though it's a giant organization, they treated me like a person. They didn't think about how it was going to not benefit them. They were totally focused on what I needed, and even went a couple steps further and anticipated things I didn't even think about. I didn't care about my credit card being charged right away, credited back right away. 3 days would have been fine. I just didn't want to deal with the box. And then to put a $10 gift card on top of that, they really get the client. So we talk about people buy from people they know, like, and trust, and that still does exist. But people buy from people, companies, and brands they know, like, and trust. So when we think of our own culture of the client, are we doing everything we can when we're having clients? Because does anything ever go bad in the world of promotional products? Does anything ever go wrong? No, never, right? Logos are always applied perfectly, decorations, PMS colors, perfect match every time, right? Delivery's always on time. So there's opportunities for us to create that culture of client, right? Because we can talk about how we believe in customer service, we can talk about how important it is, but the real proof is when something goes horribly wrong. When I explain the promotional products industry to people, my friends who aren't in it, I said, there's an order here and it's delivered here, and there's about 45 opportunities for failure along the way. So when we can anticipate what those are and help the client move past that, or help the client through those challenges, that's the culture of a client. That's a client experience contract. Empowerment, agility through empowerment. I don't know how many of you have people who work for you, but if you are not allowing people to make mistakes, we talked about failure earlier and making mistakes, if you're not allowing people to make decisions, you're doing yourself, and more importantly, you're doing your clients a disservice. How many of us have a customer service experience when we just wish, would you please make a decision? Do you really need to go to some faceless person I've never met? Please, it's not that big of a deal. We have to empower our people to make decisions. I've had the honor of managing quite a few people in my day, and mistakes are going to happen. And if people are making mistakes on behalf of the client, that's fine. I'll accept that all day long. If they're making a mistake because they want to make it right for the client, that's good. If they're making a mistake because they're trying to protect me, they're trying to protect the company, I have a big problem with that, because the client's the one that usually pays the price. And we all can think about companies outside, maybe even inside our industry, where we've had experiences like that, and it's very unpleasant. So empower your people to think on behalf of the client. The last one on this section, my favorite, and this honestly is honest feedback. How many of you, or I'm sure many of you, have meetings with your long-term clients? I call them stewardship reviews, or whatever they are, whatever you call them. You ask how we're doing, right? How are we doing? What can we do better? My experience is most people will ask, well, how are we doing? And they kind of white knuckle it. And it's like when I ask my kids how school was that day, and they say fine, and we go, good, awesome. Well, let's move on, because what I came here to show you is this, 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 and this. You have to give your clients permission to give you honest feedback. People are generally nice. People don't want to hurt your feelings. People don't want to say, well, this wasn't quite right. But let me give an example. If you're with a client and you ask them, how are we doing? And they say, you're doing fine. Say, you know, that's great. I'm glad you're happy, but there's got to be something we can do better. And if they told you, well, actually, you know those sweatshirts we got delivered in October? About 5 of them had a hole in the right armpit. It wasn't a big deal because we had plenty to give out. It wasn't that big of a deal. Isn't that information you would want to know? I would. As a distributor, I'd certainly want to know that. Or as a supplier, I'd want to know that. If there's a quality control issue, I'd absolutely want to know that. Because they may tell you it's not a big deal, but I guarantee you when your competitor goes in, if they actually get an appointment, if they somehow get in there, the first thing they're going to say is, yeah, I got these sweatshirts. Some of them had holes in them. They never even asked about them. So what they're telling you isn't a big deal actually really is a big deal. And you have to give people give them permission to give you that honest feedback. And you talk about deepening a relationship. You talk about really differentiating yourself, because you're showing someone you care. I really care what you think. I may not like what I hear, but I know we can do better. There's got to be something we can do better. And you give them that license to do that. It's actually extraordinarily powerful. The last one is kind of a wrap-up of all the previous 4. It's what I call introspection. When you're looking at the first 4 things, your brand and your message, does it project the image your clients want? Does it give out the feeling that you want it to give? We all walk the trade show floor, and we all see some of the names people have on their badges, and we all snicker. We think it's funny. But those people actually go to market that way. And we can say, I'd never work for that company just because of the name. The image they're giving me is, I can't imagine how they succeed. So, but we need to look at our own brand as well, whether it's our personal brand or our company's brand, because we all get very attached to it. And so we need to look at that every couple of years. What emotions is it eliciting in your clients? When someone says, Bill Petrie, what are they thinking about? When someone says Brandivate, what do they think about? Those are the things I think about. Are they thinking the right things, at least for me? And those are the questions I ask myself. What about your current clients, your marketplace, your target audience? Do you understand the value you offer and how you can leverage that to increase your sales? Do you have the right targets you're going after? Are you just going after the marketing department like everybody else and saying some variation of, hey, look, we're awesome and creative? Because if you are, you're going to struggle. I'll tell you that right now, you'll struggle. Are you disrupting internally? Are you being proactive, looking at your processes, looking at the way you've sold? Are you still dropping off a catalog and saying, tell me what you want in there? Or are you being much more proactive and saying, look, I want you to understand, what do you want people to do as a result of getting this product? Because that's the real question, isn't it, when we work with people? They give something away, they hand something out. What do they want people to do with it? If it's at a trade show, do you want just them to throw it in a bag? Do you want them to leave it in their hotel room? Do you want them, what's the call to action? What do people want to do? We have to really think about that from a disruptive internal standpoint. Are we going to market in a different way are we going to market the same way we always have? Do we need to look at how the world's changing and adapt? In the client experience contract, do you embrace curiosity as a culture? And yeah, you're going to have some clients who don't want to spend the time with you. You are. But you are going to have some clients that absolutely do want that and really will see the value in what a human being can offer. And we talked about some of those things we feel like are threatening or a little bit of a fear when we look at the industry and what are the challenges we face. And one of them was, the internet and the way people are buying. People feel threatened by that. Yeah, I will tell you right now, just like Amazon, but on a smaller scale, there are companies in our industry right now that sell online and create that connection and that bond, that relationship. There are absolutely ways to do it. Absolutely ways to do it. Let me go. So before I go into that, and I talked also about millennials, and I know there are people who are very concerned. I don't know how to work with millennials. They buy differently. They're completely different. First of all, I'm a believer that it's every generation's job to feel like, every generation feels like the one behind them is ruin it for everybody. It's not true. I find millennials are more loyal and more focused on customer service and quality than my generation. I guess I'm Gen X, whatever that means. They just want to be dealt with differently. It is not millennials' responsibility to ignore 20 years of technology they've grown up with to make you feel comfortable the way you're communicating. That's not their responsibility. And if any of you have kids or grandkids, you already know how to talk to millennials. I was talking to somebody out there. My kids, I don't talk on the phone with them. We text. And if I'm really irritated with them and I need them to come do something, I get on Snapchat. Like if I want them to come down for dinner and I can't get them, I get on Snapchat and I just write now and I make some sort of goofy face. Is it the way I thought I'd be communicating with my flesh and blood? No, it's not. But I adapt. And it's our job to adapt to that next generation of buyers who's coming. And they're already here. And like I said, they embrace loyalty. They're fiercely loyal. But they expect an experience. They expect ease of transaction. And then when something goes wrong, they expect somewhat immediate responsiveness. And that doesn't sound so threatening to me. It sounds like some basic customer service to me. So don't be threatened by those things as we try to differentiate. So some key takeaways. Remember, your brand message is not about what you think it means. It's about what I think it means. It's about what your client thinks it means. Like I said, Comcast can change their name to Xfinity all they want. I still think it's a terrible company. That's my perception. The target audience, engage them on their terms. That's what I just talked about. I love asking a question to a new client. How would you prefer me to communicate? There are some people who want email, there's some people who want text, there's some people who probably even would rather, hey, can you do a Snapchat of that product so I can see it, or whatever. Adapt. Disrupt internally, continually reinvent. I am not a believer that we are static people. We allow kids develop, my kids are 13, they're vastly different human beings than they were when they were 8 years old. I'm 46 and I'm a vastly different person than I was when I was 41. I've reinvented myself several times throughout my career, and I'm sure you guys have too. So reinvent the way you do things. Look at what's happening around you. Don't stick your head in the sand. Move forward, because it's like people who are resistant to social media. You can sit in a rowboat and row against the current in the ocean all day long, but at some point the current's going to take you. And then create that client experience contract. Continually deliver on the specific expectations of your client. I love asking that questions. Mr. and Mrs. Client, what do you expect from us? We've lost the ability to be direct sometimes. We want to, let's see if I can figure out what their hot button is and all the, no, ask, just ask. What's important to you? Well, I need you to be responsive. I need you to provide some pretty creative ideas. And I don't even know what creative means, but I need you to provide them. Find out what the client wants and give them the experience they desire. And then have that honest conversation with yourself if you work alone. If you work alone and don't have an accountability partner, I strongly suggest you get one. I do work by myself, and I was telling Mark last night, we had dinner, Mark Graham, and the biggest challenge I have is everybody tells me everything I do is great, and I know it's not. And so I actually have 2 or 3 people who are brutally frank with me. And when they tell me I do something well, it means the world to me. So have that conversation, whether it's with yourself, an accountability partner, or if you have a team, I encourage you to include all your team members, regardless of age, regardless of function in their job. Include all of them in that conversation. What does our brand look like? Are we going after the right clients? Should we look at doing some things differently than the way we've done them? And what does our client experience look like from the outsider's point of view? When you ask those things, you find the ways to differentiate yourself from everybody else, because then it becomes really uniquely you. And that's all I've got, unless you guys have some questions. Thank you very, very much.